Here's a stat that stopped the entire footballing world in its tracks: 12 World Cup appearances, 12 consecutive starts, across 3 different tournaments: 2018, 2022, and now 2026. That was Heung-Min Son's record before last night. And then, in the most important match of South Korea's tournament, a match they absolutely could not afford to lose, their captain, their talisman, the greatest player in Asian football history, was left out of the starting lineup. South Korea paid the ultimate price. South Africa won 1-0. And Bafana are through to the round of 32 for the first time in South African history. Welcome to SoccerVault, the home of the hottest breakdowns in world soccer. This was one of the most dramatic nights of the entire group stage, and I am taking you through every single moment. Let's set the scene. Group A coming into the final match day was wide open behind Mexico, who had already punched their ticket with maximum points. South Korea sat second on 3 points, knowing that even a draw could be enough to advance. South Africa sat third on just 1 point, a loss to Mexico, a draw with Czechia, and they needed a win. Nothing less. But the biggest story coming into this match wasn't the standings, it was the selection. The night before the match, coach Heung-Min Son dropped a bombshell. Heung-Min Son, the Tottenham captain, the face of Korean football for a generation, would not be starting. Oh Hyun-gyu, who had scored the winner in South Korea's opening victory over Czechia, would lead the line instead. South Korea had also been dealing with internal friction throughout the tournament. Players had staged a media boycott earlier in the campaign following mockery of Son's military service obligations. A story that highlighted very real cracks beneath the surface. And now, with everything on the line, the captain was watching from the bench. This was either a brave tactical masterstroke or a disaster waiting to happen. The first half told its own story before a ball was even struck at goal. South Korea had the possession, they always do, but without Son's movement, without that intelligence running in behind defensive lines, without the threat that forces backlines to compress and shift, they looked flat. Kang In-lee buzzed in pockets of space. Hwang Hee-chan pressed high with energy, and Hwang In-beom tried to dictate rhythm from deep in midfield, but the cutting edge simply wasn't there. The decisive final pass was absent. Moments of genuine danger were rare and unconvincing. South Africa, meanwhile, were anything but passive. Oswin Apollos and Relabahile Mofokeng, 2 electric direct wingers, terrorized the South Korean fullbacks with relentless pace and directness all evening. The defensive shape was compact, the transitions from defense to attack were incisive, and there was a real belief running through Bafana's play that hadn't been so visible in their previous 2 matches. They were not sitting back hoping to nick a result on the counter. They were hunting the breakthrough with purpose and conviction. The first half ended goalless, but the momentum, the urgency, the intensity, the belief on the pitch, belonged entirely to South Africa. 63 minutes. That is the moment Thapelo Maseko wrote himself into the history books forever. Chepang Moremi collected the ball in midfield, looked up, and slipped a crisp, perfectly timed square pass into Maseko's path on the edge of the penalty area. 1 touch to set himself. Then, a composed, precise left-footed strike driven low and hard into the bottom right corner. Kim Seung-gyu got a hand to it. Not enough. 1-0. South Africa. The Estadio BBVA in Monterrey erupted. South African players sprinted to the corner flag in scenes of pure, delirious joy. And somewhere across South Africa, in living rooms, in bars, in streets, in every corner of a football-mad nation, people were on their feet, because this wasn't just a goal. This was the beginning of something that had never happened before in South African football history. Heung-Min Son finally turned to Son. He came on, but the game had already changed its shape. South Korea needed their identity at the very moment the man who defines it had been kept on the bench for most of an hour. The pressure mounted. Time ran out. And then came the moment that almost ripped history apart at the seams. Deep in the closing stages, Park Jin-seob rose to meet a corner kick and powered a header toward the top corner. It looked certain. Every South African heart in that stadium stopped beating. Ronwen Williams, the goalkeeper, who had been quietly outstanding throughout South Africa's entire campaign, threw himself to his left and pulled off a sensational flying save. Full extension, fingertips. The ball deflected away from danger, and Williams roared at the sky like a man who understood exactly what that save meant. Because it meant everything. That stop wasn't just preserving a 1-0 lead, it was preserving history itself. The clock ticked through injury time. South African clearances, Korean crosses, desperate, breathless moments, then the final whistle. South Africa 1, South Korea 0, Bafana are going through. Now, let's address the question the entire footballing world is asking this morning. Was Heung-Min Son right to drop Son? Here's my honest take, and I know half of you will push back hard on this. He was wrong. Not because the numbers were unfair. 0 goals in the tournament, an anonymous display against Mexico, substituted before the hour mark without a single shot on target. The statistics told a damning story. But you do not bench your captain in the defining match of a World Cup campaign on form alone. Son Heung-min's value was never purely statistical. It was about movement, about dragging center backs into positions they did not want to occupy, about creating space for every teammate around him simply by existing in attacking areas. Without him, South Korea looked exactly what they became, a team without a heartbeat. When Son finally came on, the damage was already done. The decision backfired spectacularly, and South Korean football now faces a painful summer of difficult questions about leadership, squad unity, and whether Heung-Min Son should continue as head coach. So, what does Group A look like now? Here is your final table. Mexico, 9 points, 3 wins, perfect record, dominant in every match. Their concurrent 3-0 demolition of Czechia confirmed they are one of the most impressive sides in this tournament. South Africa, 4 points. Second place, into the round of 32, for the first time in the entire history of South African football. Let that sink in. They were at the 1998 World Cup, group stage exit. 2002, group stage exit. 2010, they were the hosts, and became the only host nation in World Cup history to be eliminated in the group stage. 16 years away from this stage, and now they are back. And they are through. South Korea finished third on 3 points, eliminated. Czechia go home with 1 point at the bottom of the group, and South Africa, with Williams in goal, Maseko in attack, and an entire nation behind them, walk into the round of 32 with heads held high and genuine belief that anything is possible. What a night! What a group! What a story! South Africa making World Cup history for the very first time ever. A legendary captain watching his nation eliminated from the substitutes bench. And one of the saves of this entire tournament from the brilliant Ronwen Williams to seal it all. This is exactly what the World Cup was built for. Upsets, drama, heartbreak, and the birth of new football nations on the world stage. If this breakdown fired you up, smash that like button right now. It costs you nothing, and it genuinely helps us keep bringing this content to you every single day. Subscribe to SoccerVault if you haven't already, because we are covering every single moment of the round of 32 and beyond. Every tactical breakdown, every dramatic moment, every twist this extraordinary World Cup still has left to deliver. And drop your take in the comments below right now. Was Heung-Min Son right to bench Son Heung-min? Brave tactical decision, or the worst call of his coaching career? I want that debate. See you in the next one.